I don't want to brag here on a Monday morning, Carano, but I spent a lot of time this weekend. I spent a lot of time for the past week reading about the situation in Afghanistan, reading about the what's going on outside the airport in Kabul. I mean, I went from pronouncing it Kabul to Kabul because that's what most people do. I feel like I'm pretty well informed at this point. I don't know what more I can do to inform myself, and I still have a question. Maybe you can help me. I mean,
I'll try.
you're a pretty smart guy. Can you just answer me one question? I mean, it's not a big question, but it's a question that's just nagging at me. Why did we pull out of Afghanistan and leave our stuff and our people behind? Could you just answer that? Then we'll move on.
I think that was the first question you asked when this topic came up, when this all happened a week ago, or whenever it was, and there's still no good answer for it.
There's no answer, period. It's so bizarre to me, and I do have some liberal friends, and I do have some people who don't, who aren't, who voted for Biden, who wanted this, who brought this on, and I blame them. This is on them, but I can't even find a decent spin. I can't find a decent lie, put it that way, to support this. I cannot find an answer to this. It's driving me nuts. I do not understand it. I do not understand it. If you're going to be, the guy who got us out of Afghanistan, stuck to your promises, you can blame Trump for inviting the Taliban to Camp David and other stupid things. That's fine. But why would you ever pull out of Afghanistan and leave our people and our stuff behind? I've asked this on Twitter. I've looked for an answer. I mean, someone tweeted me yesterday. It says they had to leave the stuff behind so that the Afghan army could fight, but the Afghan army didn't fight. I mean, they didn't last 2 days, and we knew it. Milley knew it. He lied. Austin knew it. Everybody knew that the Afghan army wasn't going to fight. They didn't need our stuff. But I'm just looking at the story, and it's almost underplayed in my mind. We left Black Hawk helicopters. We left, I'll just give you a couple of things. We left A-29 Super Tucano attack aircraft. We left M4 carbines, M16 rifles, AK-47s. We left drones. We left Humvees and mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. We left about $80 to $100 million. Do I have that right, or is it 100? I don't even know anymore. We left millions and millions and millions, billions of dollars worth of U.S. military equipment. We gave the Taliban an instant air force. They didn't have an air force for the last 20 years. They beat us anyway. They beat the greatest superpower in the history of the world, lost to these 6th century savages without an airplane. Now they got some airplanes. They got some choppers. They got a Black Hawk, at least one. They have drones. They have Humvees. Why? Why?
Just to make you feel better about things, each one of those airplanes, $66 million.
So and I understand the media has a job. The job is to help Biden get through this. This is a crisis. It is jeopardizing his entire presidency is in peril. We know that now. And if he didn't have such an awful vice president, I think there would be a much louder outcry for him to step down. He is inept. He is incompetent. He is unable to do this job. We know that now, and we'll get to some of the evidence, the latest evidence. But I can't get past this. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe this is what you do.
It's not you.
When you surrender, you leave your stuff there. But we're going to see if we have a battle. And if you're just waking up, there was a battle at the Kabul airport, a gunfight with the Taliban and some U.S. troops, I believe British troops also. One dead, a number of injured, a 2-year-old girl dead at the airport. It's simmering. So if there is indeed a battle, if there is some firefights, and we see some Taliban savage flying a Black Hawk, or maybe it's an Afghan army guy who was trained to do that, who switched sides and joined the Taliban. If we've already seen pictures, by the way, and I know the media will do their best to bury this, but we talked about iconic images last week, and the image of people jumping from or falling from the airplane, including a 19-year-old soccer star who somehow thought it was a good idea to hang on to the fuselage of a departing C-17. He died falling from the airplane. Those are images that we will see. If you look in the right places, forever. That's on Biden. That kid, that 19-year-old kid, his blood is on the hands of Joe Biden. But we have another image that is going to, and again, the media will do their best to bury it. It's unfortunate because I think this is something everybody should see. This is these savages, these Stone Age savages, wearing U.S. military, U.S. Army camouflage, and mocking Iwo Jima, mocking the iconic photo from Iwo Jima, where the U.S. Marines held the flag up, and there's book Flags About Fathers about it. The movie, everyone knows that image. It's seared in our brains. It's an image of victory. Well, the Taliban mocked it, and if that doesn't infuriate anybody and everybody, I don't know what's it going to take. They have our stuff. They have our people. We have U.S. citizens, and we're getting some out, but they're still there, and there's a lot, and I'm not sure we're going to get them all out.
Gerry, and you asked a few minutes ago if that's standard operating procedure. If you're just going to leave a country, you leave all your stuff there and all your people there. Well, no, I mean historically, I listen to hardcore history. Historically, if you're the Huns or the Roman army, or even in World War I and World War II, if you retreat, you burn everything or take it.
What? I don't know. Maybe I'm not much of a military tactician, but I can think of a way to get an aircraft or a Black Hawk or a plane, get it out of the country. I mean, you don't need a tow truck. You don't need to, carry it. You just start, you turn the key, you start it, and you put it in gear, and you take off, and you fly somewhere else. You fly to some neighboring country, Uzbekistan or somewhere else, before you surrender to the Taliban. You get the stuff out. If you have to destroy it, I guess you do that. You destroy it like we destroyed one of the choppers when they killed bin Laden in Pakistan.
Right.
Brian Williams famously said one of the Navy SEALs took a piece of that chopper just to give to him as a souvenir. They wanted to make sure Brian Williams got a souvenir from that mission. Obviously, it was made up like everything else Brian Williams said, but I still will never, I guess maybe someday I'll get an explanation. Maybe someday I'll read something that makes sense of why we left so in such a hurry and left behind our stuff, which is now being used to mock us by a group of these terrorists. A bunch of terrorists are wearing American Army gear and mocking the guys who raised the flag on Iwo Jima. I'm sorry, that almost makes it seem like we should be attacking. We should be. We should find where they are. I mean, there are pictures of these guys celebrating in whatever in the not the castles, the mansions that the previous president lived in, and the pictures include a bunch of known terrorists, guys who were at Gitmo, and Obama or Biden let them go, and now they're back on the battlefield trying to kill Americans. I just tweeted out a story this morning about this. The number of former Gitmo guys who are now leading the Taliban and who now control their own country. When do we go in and kill them? When do we go back in there and kill them? Because we know where they are. We know who they are. We know that they're terrorists. We know they have American blood on their hands. Or we just going to continue to shuffle out of that country as quickly as possible, the way that Joe Biden shuffles off stage after giving a speech. Is there anything more pathetic than when he turns around and he just does that old man shuffle, and they're yelling questions at him, and he just turns around? It's a sad, there's a lot of really sad images these days for America. Obviously, they're laughing at us around the globe. That was just one of the many, many lies Biden told last week when he said, he hasn't heard anything about them, the disapproval of these other countries. He said just the opposite. They said, you guys did the right thing, but just a total lie. The latest is Tony Blair, former prime minister of England, called Biden an imbecile. That's
Yeah.
the kind of respect you're getting, Joe, from a hardcore liberal in Great Britain calling you an imbecile. Yeah, they really respect you a lot. We will get to Biden's speech from yesterday, another train wreck as he tried to pronounce the woman who runs FEMA. That was an interesting moment when he just couldn't. I mean, he's obviously looking at the damn teleprompter, trying to read this woman's name, and he could not do it. Then he goes to questions, and I'm sorry, this is just an embarrassment. This is a national embarrassment. He pulls the card out with the names written on it because everything's pre-screened and pre-scripted, and they know what questions are coming, and they know who to call on, and they do not call on Peter Ducey and anyone else who might actually ask a real question. Everything he gets in terms of questions he's expecting, he knows that he's prepared, or they as best as they can prepare him. But watching him read those names off the card and then look back down and then read the name off the card, that's not presidential. That's not leadership. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating watching this thing go down. But it can never get. I'll say this for Biden. I don't think he can ever look worse than he did with George Stephanopoulos the other day. And I know we talked about it Wednesday, but that interview, that was the end. That there's nobody who could watch him sit down with his friend George and stumble and bumble and talk about 4 days ago and think, yeah, he can handle the next 3.5 years. To me, if you saw that interview and just saw the way he struggled, I guess because he didn't have a teleprompter and he couldn't have somebody in his ear, you just said that guy's just not all there. He's just not all there. And some people, I know Howie Kahn wrote about this weekend. He said Tucker Carlson always says he feels sorry for Joe Biden, and Howie says, no, I don't feel so sorry for Joe Biden. It doesn't matter, right? Whether you feel sorry for him or not. We all agree he is cognitively deteriorating. It is not going to get better. It is going to get worse. I've spent plenty of time around people afflicted with dementia. One thing I know is it never gets better. You might have a good day and a bad day, but your cognitive state, the condition of your brain or your mind does not improve. It's not going to heal. He's going to get worse. And something like this, a very stressful situation, it's going to expose him. And one of the symptoms, one of the things that people with dementia have in common is they get a little frustrated. They get a little snippy because they cannot recall the words or they cannot remember things, and it gets frustrating. Even if they're in their better days, younger days, they were perfectly calm and composed. When you get to that state, you get a little edgy, and that's what we see for Biden. If he gets asked even a question that's even remotely, I don't even want to say hostile, but just if they're not just slurping him and slobbering all over him, he gets frustrated, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah, Stephanopoulos, I thought, was super fair the entire time. He had to ask those questions, or he'd be looked at as not a competent reporter.
Right.
But they weren't that pointed. They were just on some specific stuff, and he did so poorly they had to cut out like 6 minutes of the video to try to edit it down.
If you want to see media bias at work, and obviously you see it every day with the Washington press corps and the cover-up for everything. I mean, the list of things that they helped Biden lie about, or they helped Biden hide out during the campaign so that he wouldn't be exposed to the voters. They let him hide. They did the campaign for him. But things like the bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan, which designed for two things. That was a lie, spread in the New York Times. And it was designed to do two things: to hurt Trump, obviously, that the Russians have bounties on American soldiers, and to stop the withdrawal, because they didn't want Trump to pull out of Afghanistan. And let's face it, if he pulled out of Afghanistan, he would have taken our stuff and our people. He would have done it right. So they stopped him with that lie. They lied. The Atlantic magazine lied about Trump calling servicemen losers and suckers. And it was all by design. They make that up. They put it in their magazine, and then Biden treats it as gospel, goes to the debate and says, he called our troops losers and suckers, when he knows it's all made up. There was one lie after another that they helped spread and advance so that Biden could beat Trump over the head with it. But the biggest lie of all, perhaps, was that he is okay. I mean, wouldn't you say that's the biggest lie you get from the media? that he is not struggling, that he is not in a state of deteriorating, mentally deteriorating. But here's a great example, kids. If you want to learn about media bias, ABC, obviously Stephanopoulos sits down with the president, his friend. Obviously, George Stephanopoulos' goal is to not trip him up, to help him as much as possible, but he can only do so much. As you point out, there are questions he had to ask. He had to ask about people falling out of the plane. He had no choice. So what do they do with some of his answers that were just embarrassing? You know what they do? They cut them out. They edit them out, and they're on the cutting room floor, and we never get to hear some of the worst gaffes. I mean, there's one answer that is just so embarrassing about. He doesn't remember what branch of the service his son Bo served in.
Yeah. Yes.
Here's the answer that they cut out. That would have been it would have been notable, to say the least, if he actually said this and it appeared on the on ABC that night or that day. He's asked about to respond to a veteran saying he wished the U.S. could have left Afghanistan with honor. Biden responds, quote, "Look, that's like asking my deceased son, Bo, who spent 6 months in Kosovo and a year in Iraq as a Navy captain and then as an Army major. And, I'm sure he had regrets coming out of Afghanistan. Out of Iraq. He had regrets to how it's going. But the idea is, what's the alternative? The alternative is, why are we staying in Afghanistan? Why are we there? Don't you think that the one, who's most disappointed in us getting out? Russia and China. All right. Bo, his deceased son, was in Iraq. He was with the U.S. Army, the U.S. Army National Guard. He wasn't in the Navy. He doesn't remember what branch his son who died was in when he was at war? That's a hell of a thing to forget, especially if you're going to use your son's death for political gain, which is what he does. But they cut that out. Obviously, they cut it out for a reason. They don't want to embarrass their friend, Joe Biden. But that is embarrassing. And that is that's the media bias at work. Here we are helping Joe Biden, not allowing him to stumble too much. Obviously, there's only so much you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Like yesterday when he called on the media, went to his list of questions and named the names. And he struggles just to read the names. He can't read the last names. He goes, Ed, when he goes to Ed O'Keefe, I believe, with CBS. Oh, yeah, Ed. And Ed, obviously they planned this in advance, but he still wasn't ready for it. When Ed asks about the polls, or the public who doesn't think, the majority of the American public does not think he's capable of doing the job anymore. That's a pretty big deal. What do you say?
Yeah, I totally do. It's a huge deal. And so you know what? I wanted to ask you something. So I was a little bit too young to really be involved and noticing this stuff at the time. But I heard that the kind of towards the end of Reagan's second term, it started to get rough for him. Is this as bad? Is this worse?
Oh, it's much worse. Much worse. First of all, it's 6 months in. And secondly, I don't remember any. I think it was just the opposite. The media was invested in making Reagan look bad.
Yeah.
And one of the real frustrations the media had is his wife, Nancy, was very protective. You never saw a picture after he'd left office, after, 8 glorious years. He left office. You never saw him stumbling, bumbling. You never heard him. She protected him till the day he died. There's no picture of him wandering around the yard in his slippers and his robe and, talking to the trees. Nothing like that ever happened. It's been 6 months. There's already a dozen instances of Joe Biden looking, clinically unwell. And it's 7 months in. The idea that he could do this job for 3.5 more years. I can't imagine being able to do this job for 6 more months. It is beyond impeachable. Think of what they impeached Trump for. They impeached Trump for asking Ukraine to look into the corruption involving Biden, which is his job, to root out corruption. And we know the Bidens are corrupt and making money. We know that. We've got on videotape of Joe Biden threatening the prosecutor, threatening the Ukrainians if they don't fire the prosecutor that's looking into his son's business dealings. That was made up. And then they impeached him for saying, Let's go down to the Capitol and patriotically and peacefully protest. Impeach for that after leaving office. What do you do to a president who pulls out of Afghanistan and leaves our people and our stuff in harm's way? And I mean, we're getting lots of people out, but we're not going to get everyone, and it could get really, really ugly. Lots of military experts are predicting this is going to get ugly. There will be hostages. Then what? Then what? Then talking about President Harris, which is frightening. But
in its own right. So the gaffes were pretty crappy to read that they cut out from ABC. But the one that bothered me the most was actually when he sounded kind of cogent. And obviously, we only have the transcript here, but it was when Stephanopoulos was asking, let's get right to it. Back in July, you said a Taliban takeover was highly unlikely. Was the intelligence wrong, or did you downplay it? And Biden cogently says, I think there was no consensus. If you go back and look at the intelligence reports, they said that it's more likely to be sometime by the end of the year. So he's cogent, but he contradicts himself what he said a month ago.
And unfortunately for Joe, there's videotape of him July 8th, saying just the opposite of what he's saying now.
Happen. It's not going to happen.
Right. It's not going to happen. That the Afghan army was 300,000 strong, or as he liked to say, has 300 people, which is what he said the other day, that the Afghan army has 300 people. And he thought they were going to hold up. Nobody thought they were going to hold up. Nobody. They knew they were going to lay down their arms, turn tail, and run. They did it anyway. It's just mind-boggling. I'm going to ask this every day, Karan. I'm going to say, have you heard anything, seen anything? Have anyone anywhere answered the question, explained what the hell this old dementia patient was thinking when he said, we're gone, we're out of here, leave our stuff, leave our people, leave the interpreters, leave the citizens. Let's go. Here's the political strategy, by the way, which is driving me nuts. And I tweeted about it yesterday, and I'll continue to, is he comes out, whether it's with Steffi or it's in front of the media or wherever, he comes out and just talks about why we had to withdraw, why we had to leave, which everybody agrees we should leave. That's not the question. It's just some political strategy to get everyone off the real subject, which is, why didn't we do it right? Why did we leave in such a hurry? Why did we leave our people and our stuff behind? Those are the questions that everybody has, and this guy can't answer them. So he starts talking about, how long did you want to stay? If you left a month ago or in a month, he still would have had chaos. And it's such a simple question. This is why it's devastating to his political fortunes, to his place in office. I think it's devastating because it's very simple to understand. Everybody listening to us right now understands that we left Black Hawk helicopters, we left drones, we left Humvees that the Taliban are now using. We left them an instant air force. That's easy to understand. That's not complicated. That's not some, big, scheme to avoid paying taxes or something. It's very simple. We left Black Hawk helicopters, and now these 6th century savages have them, and they can use them on their own people, on our people, on whoever, on whatever. The idea that the question is, why are we leaving? It's not. Everyone wants to leave. Everyone agreed to want to leave. Okay, why are we leaving this way, Mr. President? You stumbling, bumbling, feeble-minded old fool. That's the question. And I'm waiting for an answer.
Yeah, we don't have it. And I still think, like you were right when we talked about this last week, that so if it were a longer process, if it took the Taliban 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months to take over, then maybe that tactic would have worked from the Biden administration. But it was so fast, it doesn't work. We saw it happen real time in like 2 days.
2 days. That's about how long they lasted. And I think we're getting a glimpse of just how inept, corrupt even the generals are. God knows the Joint Chiefs, the head of the Joint Chiefs, and Milley, and the Secretary of Defense in Austin. I think there had to be real disagreement, but they're not going to voice it right now because they are political creatures looking to protect their own ass. But if you follow any of the enlisted guys, any of the guys who did the fighting, and I mentioned Robert O'Neill, Joey Jones, these kind of guys, they're all disgusted. They're disgusted with their generals. They're disgusted with their president, and that ain't going to change. We're not going to suddenly get our stuff back. As one, I forget who it was, one military analyst said, we probably can't ask for our stuff back now. It's probably too late. And somebody asked this question yesterday. Said, could we go back to Bagram and just say, we're going to keep Bagram? And they said, no, it's not possible. They have it now. They have Bagram. They have our embassy, which costs $700 million. And they apparently have a database with the names and addresses of everybody who helped us. Somebody can explain to me how Biden could have done this any worse, how they could have made and done this with less forethought. The idea that now they have the names and addresses of everybody who collaborated, everybody who was an interpreter, this is going to get ugly. And I guess, Biden will just keep talking about that. How long did you want to stay? There were a couple of real notable interviews, moments over the weekend. I think perhaps the best was when Tony Blinken was asked by Chris Wallace on Fox News, and I will explain to you why this was so devastating, but the question was a good one. Chris Wallace, bad news for Joe Biden. He has lost, Chris Wallace, perhaps his most devoted rump swab. Chris Wallace, I'm not sure there were too many people that worked harder to get Biden elected than Chris Wallace, who I hate, but he moderated one of the debates. He was totally unfair. He was totally there to help Biden, and it worked. He kept jumping on Trump and kept saving Biden when Trump was going in for the kill. But anyway, it's over. Chris Wallace has bailed on his friend Joe Biden. Chris Wallace asks Blinken, what's the exact question? He says, does Joe Biden not know what's going on? That's a pretty good question, since that's the question everybody would like answered. If you're a Biden person, you're obviously in his cabinet, you're Secretary of State. He gave you the big job. You're failing miserably at it, but he gave you the big job. What do you say to that question?
Answer is yes.
You say yes. Of course he knows what's going on. Of course. And you might even get a little defensive and say, what kind of question is that? Of course he knows what's going on. He's directing us all. I mean, he's on top of everything. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say anything close to that. He just kind of, changes the course of the conversation. He does not say, yes, he knows what's going on. But let's listen as two things happen. Chris Wallace bails on his pal Biden, and Blinken does not deny that Joe Biden is out to lunch.
Mr. Secretary, does the president not know what's going on?
This is an incredibly emotional time for many of us, and including allies and partners who've been shoulder to shoulder with us in Afghanistan for 20 years at high cost to themselves as well as to us. They stood with us after 9/11, invoked Article 5 of NATO for the first time. An attack on one is an attack on all. And we've been there together. But I've got to tell you this, Chris, from the get-go, I've spent more time with our NATO partners in Brussels virtually.
He sounds so weak. He looks so weak. That is not the guy you want up front, the face of this nation in a time of crisis like this. But that was not. It was a good question, but it was not a tough question. Anybody who's on Biden's side would just immediately say, "Of course he knows what's going on. How dare you?" He didn't do that.
No,
he doesn't do that. He says,
he didn't answer the question at all.
Emotional time? An
Yes.
emotional time? What the hell does that mean?
It means that he does not think his boss knows what's going on. That's exactly what that means. It means I can't answer this question honestly, because later on, when everybody finds out, when the tests are out showing that his mind is pea soup, I'm going to get flack for it later on. So he doesn't answer the question at all. He just evades, runs away. He
sure doesn't. And he just, every interview he does is uncomfortably so weak. He looks just like a guy who's just trying to get through it, who's not there strongly standing up for this country. Looks like one of those guys who would like to, apologize. One of those Obama types would like to apologize for this country. We are not proud of our history. He does not look like a proud patriot who should be the face of the United States of America in front of the world. His head might roll. He might be the one. Someone's going to have to pay at some point, whether it's Milley or Austin or all of them. The idea that nobody has lost a job over this yet is amazing to me. I know Biden eventually will, but the idea that nobody gets blamed for this, nobody nobody's head rolls, it just seems incredible. I guess that's the way it works in Washington. You just fall up, man. You fall up. But let's go to yesterday when Biden comes out at whatever it was, 4 o'clock to give a speech, and obviously the mortician did a nice job. The tie was right. This makeup was on. You know, the hair was combed nicely. He was staring just desperately at the teleprompter, reading the words, which is not all that easy for Joe anymore. But right off the bat, he started to talk about how this woman who's really, really important, she's really, really good. She's the FEMA director. He just didn't know her name. He couldn't even read her name. This was uncomfortable. And this, again, you're one of his people. You're behind the scenes. You're Susan Rice or Barack Obama. You must be going, Joe, the name is right in front of you. How can you not read the damn name? But do we have that correct?
Yeah. Here it is.
Deanne Criswell of FEMA.
Hold on.
Don't you have the beginning of that at all?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. For some reason, it started a little bit halfway. I got like 10 seconds. Here it is.
I can't think of anyone better to lead this operation than Deanne Criswell of FEMA.
I can't think of anyone. She's the best. I can't read her name, but and then
meeting her, he has no idea who she is.
Do you know who she is? Because I don't.
No, but I mean, he's the president. Like, he should know who.
I don't have it like written on a teleprompter in front of me. Deanna.
I couldn't quite make out Deanna something. Hold on.
Criswell. And he couldn't think of anyone better than Deanna Criswell to lead this operation.
It's not a hard name either. Criswell is not a hard name to pronounce.
It is funny, though, when he comes out and talks about the hurricane, which I'm sure he's very disappointed didn't turn out to be as devastating as they had hoped, because they needed a distraction. It's like when he came out and talked about COVID the other day, just babbling on about COVID, and you're going, wait a second, there are 10,000 Americans behind enemy lines. You're talking about COVID? You're talking about the weather? I mean, you can't do that. You can't do that. This is your doing. You did this. This is on you. The blood is on you. The mess is on you. You're not going to divert everyone's attention to the freaking weather and how much you're here to help the states who are getting floods or whatever, have COVID spikes. They desperately need something to divert the attention, which is why I think you're going to see a wag the dog moment very soon. I'm not sure who's getting blown up or what's getting blown up, but something is getting blown up real soon.
Well, Biden was talking about, other terrorist organizations in Syria and Eastern Africa. So maybe he's just setting up for a target there.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. And he needs that. And he's going to, that he won't hesitate to do that. But do you feel sorry for Joe Biden? I want to go back to that question because I don't. I think I'm with Howie Carr on that one and not with my man Tucker. I felt sorry initially when his wife forced him to, up on stage and forced him to run, even though she knew he wasn't up for the job. She's the one that's just looking for the power of the office, and she got it. I mean, they got him elected, but we know what he's all about. I can't feel sorry for him. It's not like just going to a nursing home and seeing some person in that state saying, "No, that poor person." I mean, we know what he's done to the country already. I mean, I feel sorry for that guy.
Yeah, and not just like the contemporary example too. So I have a hard time. Yeah, I look at him and I have an initial little spike of empathy, but then I think, well, this guy, has so much power to move the military, to bomb people. He's causing so much destruction and damage and loss of life in the world now that I can't have empathy for him. But then I also think about his 50-year career and how he escalated the drug war and all sorts of stuff. And I can't. No, I want him gone. No. I want him out.
I know. Although I'm telling you, I think one stroke of genius was naming the worst politician in American history as his running mate. And we saw her yesterday. There's our southern border. There's a crisis at the border. I guess you could say there's a hurricane and the COVID and everything else, and a war or a withdrawal, a surrender in Afghanistan. And where is our vice president? She's in Singapore and going to Vietnam and giggling. It is amazing. She arrives, I think it's Singapore, and the first question obviously is about our Afghanistan surrender. And she does what she always does. She just starts giggling.
I got the video. You want to see it?
Yeah, let's watch Kamala Harris laugh at the situation in Afghanistan.
What's your response to reports of Americans?
Hold on. Slow down, everybody. I want want to talk about two things. First, Afghanistan. We couldn't have a higher priority right now, and in particular, our priority is making sure that we safely evacuate American citizens, Afghans who worked with us, Afghans at risk, including women and children, and that is one of our highest, if not the highest priority right now.
Oh,
One of our highest. One of our
yeah,
highest.
yeah, she's in Singapore trying to make some trade deal, but I can't look at that. I'm sorry, I can't. I think I'd rather have Dementia Joe. I can't look at that and listen to that laugh for the next 3.5 years. I mean, she would be a really weak candidate in 2024 against Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. But I don't think I can handle that giggle, that cackling for 3.5 more years. This was a really, really bad weekend for the leaders of Joe Biden's party. We will. Who do you want to do first, Pelosi or Schumer? Let's do Schumer. Schumer. Chuck Schumer was at this stupid concert on Central Park, which was supposed to kind of signify an opening of New York City, a reopening of New York City after the insane overreaction to COVID shut down the city and ruined so many restaurants and gyms and small businesses. They were ringing in a new era with a concert that had, some heavy hitters, Springsteen and Paul Simon. Of course, it rained, so it got called like halfway through, I think. I was actually flipping by, checking this out, trying to see what, I was hoping to see Springsteen. I don't think he actually performed. I think after, I don't know, a few other people performed, they called it because of rain. But there's one image that will last forever. And one image that to me sums up the problem with the powerful in media and in politics these days. And it is the most uncomfortable, the most embarrassing video I've ever seen of a, quote, late night comedian. It is Stephen Colbert dancing with Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the Senate. You tell me what would compel Colbert when Chuck Schumer waved him up, said, let's dance. Why wouldn't you just say no? I mean, I'm supposed to be a late night comic. I'm supposed to be somewhat of a contrarian, of a guy who pokes fun at the powerful and people like that. As I said, I think late night comedy was invented to mock people like this, like Chuck Schumer and Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert's a late night comedian, and he's literally dancing with Chuck Schumer, and doesn't see the utter humiliation of such a thing. It was remarkable. It went viral, and I hope it stays viral because I hate Stephen Colbert, and this thing should haunt him because he thought it was a good idea. He didn't think there was anything wrong with going up there. Can you imagine, just for a second, since, I don't know, Greg Gutfeld, since he's the new king of late night, or, Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson, dancing with Mitch McConnell, like on stage, like literally making the moves to the music. That's what this is. That's what this was.
If you call these moves,
what's that?
I said, if you call these moves, I mean, it's so cringy to watch just on
face value. You're
not even thinking about it. So I hate that you're going to make me play this. I hate it.
Play this. Let's watch.
I hate it. All right, here.
These two a-holes. Oh my God. And by the way, one of the biggest mask fanatics of them all, Colbert, hates people don't wear masks. No mask on Stephen Colbert.
The pretty people don't wear masks.
He dances with Schumer and they high five each other. This is a late night, quote unquote, comedian who made his name mocking, the powerful, mocking Bill O'Reilly and mocking politically powerful people in DC. And now he's up dancing with Chuck. And who's the woman? I don't even know who that is. Do we know who that is?
I don't know.
The ice cream, and she's dancing away. And I mean, the idea that someone saw this and he thinks it's okay, it just blows my mind. As I said, Greg Gutfeld is beating Colbert in the ratings now, and there's a reason, because he will see this video and he will lead with it. He will mock the hell out of it, and he's the only one who will do it. Jimmy Kimmel and Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon and John Oliver and the rest of those frauds. They won't touch this.
Now their argument. So Colbert's argument would be, well, I'm an entertainer. I'm not a newscaster. I'm not a whatever. But you want your media to speak truth to power. You want them to mock the
Right.
powerful. I mean, that's the edginess. That's the fun part of it. If you're just towing the administration's line or the government's line, you're just a mouthpiece for them. You lose all credibility. You lose all edge. No one wants to
Think of, again, if that were, again, Tucker Carlson with Mitch McConnell, which is comparable, that would be all they would do.
Yeah.
On those late night comedy shows. That's all they would do. That's all, John Oliver and the rest of them and Seth Meyers, they wouldn't do anything else. Trevor Noah. It's their guy, Stephen Colbert, even though they're competitors. It's the other thing. They're competitors, but ideology trumps, the business for them. They're more interested in protecting their friend, their kindred spirit, Stephen Colbert, than they are in doing, a funny show. It's just remarkable, and I look forward to 11 o'clock tonight, seeing Gutfeld play that and just mock the hell out of Colbert and Schumer and anyone else. But let's get to Nancy, because this is even more disturbing. This is more disturbing because right now, this is Monday morning. In some parts of the country, it's late August and kids are going back to school, and there are parents wrapping their 8-year-olds' faces in cloth and telling them they have to leave it on for the next 8 hours. I can't imagine, as I've said to Turtle Boy and Shattuck and everyone else with elementary school age children, how hard that must be, and how the kids must be like, why? And you say, because the principal says you have to, or the superintendent says you have to, or the governor or mayor says you have to. There's no reason behind it. There's no science. It's insane, but it's all about conforming. It's all about submitting, complying. And you have to watch the powerful, like Stephen Colbert, maskless. You have to watch the really powerful, like Nancy Pelosi, host a fundraiser in Napa. And I've seen a couple of different versions of this. It's either 10,000 a plate or it's 30,000 a plate, whatever. It's very, very wealthy donors in Napa, with Nancy Pelosi paying at least 10 grand per plate. There's hundreds of them, and they're all white, and they're all rich, and they're shoulder to shoulder sitting down for their arugula salad. And the servants are masked up. The wealthy and the powerful are not, and they are right next to each other. Some of them are old, gray, some of them are overweight. They don't care about wearing masks. Again, we'll say it every day. The people telling you to worry about the virus aren't worried about the virus. It is all about power and control. Nancy Pelosi, we know, she went maskless to have her hair done when no one else was allowed to get their hair done. And then when she got caught, she tried to ruin the poor working class hairdresser who was there and agreed to do her hair. She held a fundraiser yesterday or over the weekend in Napa for hundreds of wealthy people. Zero masks. Oh, I'm sorry, not zero. The servants had to wear masks. The wealthy people did not. These are the very people demanding you wrap your child's face in cloth before they go to school, or before they go play soccer, or before they go do anything. They are insistent that if you don't wrap your 8-year-old's face in cloth, then your 8-year-old's a murderer. And none of them believe it. None of them follows their own rules. It is one of the great examples of the hypocrisy of the COVID era we will ever see.
And the caption too of the event, or someone who posted on social media something like, with Pelosi discussing critical issues for all, especially us here in Napa Valley. It's like, have you ever been to Napa Valley? It's mansions and vineyards. What critical issues are you talking about? Is
there any sound to this? Obviously, it's a visual. You see the people just getting served, and they just look like just most obnoxious people. You kind of hope for, I don't know, a little food poisoning in the arugula, just because these people are so obnoxious.
Well, no. So the audio quality is not good. You just hear like wind and Pelosi way, way, way in the background. So I didn't pull it because it's not something we could really listen to. I put it in our chat here, a link to it so that people could look at it.
Okay, it's just like I described, hundreds of these people shoulder to shoulder giving money to Nancy Pelosi and other powerful people. I'm sure every single one of these people has probably donated to Gavin Newsom to save his ass. And you're not going to find a bigger mask fanatic or just like a COVID crackdown guy than Gavin Newsom. They're all for cracking down on your children, cracking down on you, but they ain't following those rules. And it's getting to the point, and like I said, the next couple of weeks are going to be big because people are so sick of following these rules, knowing that the powerful people don't believe it, don't care, that they fly anywhere they want to go, they eat wherever they want to eat, they don't give a damn about masking up or social distancing. Oh, we got to get to Australia. We got to get to Australia. Let me do Shay and whatever else we got today, and get to Australia, because it is scary what's happening in Australia. And if that's coming here, man, it's going to get even uglier than I thought. It is going to get wild. But first, let's talk about Shay Concrete. All right, the situation in Australia. See, I always think of Australia, obviously it's a prison colony originally, but we think of it as a free place, a democracy. We think it is, we're brothers. We believe in freedom and democracy. And you go there to, fish and surf and hunt and look at wild animals and that kind of stuff. Go see the coral reef. And now when you look at Australia in the news, it feels like, pre the Soviet Union, like feels like, Czechoslovakia, one of those Soviet satellites before the fall of the Soviet Union, where the Stasi or the secret police was cracking down on any dissenters. Every day out of Australia comes these scary, disturbing videos of cops beating people. There's like a montage of cops beating people, for public health, because people are sick of being locked down. The government has ordered that you can exercise for only 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day of exercise, and you must wear a mask. So if you're going to jog, I think there's a limit of the miles you can go from your home if you're going to jog or walk, and you have to be masked the entire time. And if you're not, they will arrest you, rough you up, take you to a internment camp. That's real. This was kind of, I don't know, it's not funny, but this is where we've reached in Australia. And I think a lot of people probably saw the story yesterday like I did and said, what? I got to read this. They're shooting dogs, killing dogs. And I'm thinking, why do the dogs have COVID? Is that what? It's not because the dogs have COVID, because they're trying to stop people from traveling to the dog pound to look at the dogs and maybe adopt the dogs. So they want to eliminate that reason people leave their houses. So their solution is kill the dogs. That's you wonder what crazy COVID measure is coming next. I didn't see this one coming, Crono. Did not see the solution to, the spike in cases, not deaths, cases, where college kids get the sniffles for a day or two. The reaction to that is, let's kill dogs so people can't go to the pound and look at the dogs.
We're talking single-digit cases, and we're talking, low, like 0 to 1 death in the rolling 7 average. It's just, you're right. When I think of Australians, I think of independent, hardy people. It's a tough land to live in because you got so much desert, and then you got all these huge animals that kill you, giant spiders and sharks and all sorts of stuff that kill you. I think my impression has always been these are hardy people, but these are now whipped people that they're putting up with this.
There were no recent coronavirus cases in the town of Colberts, where the animal shelter is, where they're killing the dogs. No cases. But there were, quote, fragments of COVID detected in the area's sewage treatment plant.
Someone pooped out COVID strands and they shut down the country.
0 cases. And they're killing dogs at the shelter to keep people from going to the shelter. It is frightening what is happening.
Countrywide, Gerry. Countrywide, 650 cases.
Then there was, worldwide condemnation of this, but they don't care. It's just like New Zealand. They shut down New Zealand for 1 case.
Gerry,
1 case.
Countrywide, Australia, 3 deaths. The rolling 7-day average in deaths in the entire continent of Australia is 4.
What happened to people? What the hell is going on? I mean, and I don't want to go there. I don't ever want to go there. I used to think I wanted to go there someday. I don't ever want to go there. I don't want to see these people who think the solution to this, no cases, but there was some COVID detected in the sewage plant, that we must kill dogs and lock people down and put them in internment camps and ban everything. You can't leave your home. You can't eat out. You can't travel. You can't leave the country.
Police patrolling to make sure the kids aren't at parks outside playing.
without masks, right? I mean, literally, they're arresting. There's video of a kid getting pepper sprayed. I think the kid's like 10.
Yeah.
He got pepper sprayed because he didn't have a mask on. They've gone utterly insane in Australia, which is kind of frightening. We haven't reached that point yet here. I'm going to tell you when we will, though, Carano.
Do you want to? So I also have one other thing on Australia, just in case you wanted to hit it. But
Sure.
we talked about this before we went live as well. That there was a protest in Melbourne, and the police responded with force, rubber bullets and tear gas. I've got some.
That's right. They said the first time they can remember the police using rubber bullets and tear gas on protesters, and it's because people want to leave their homes. You know, people want to go to work, so they're shooting them with rubber bullets. Why do we have the video?
I've got the sound, but you can hear the shots, and here it is.
Like any protest before in Melbourne, they've started to use this tool, the rubber bullets against their own citizens. No, don't worry. Don't worry.
You hear all that, the firing and the coughing and all that. So that's from Avi Yemeni. He's Rebel News in Australia.
Wow, it's scary. I lost all respect for Australia. Like you said, I think of freedom loving. You think they would leave the fight to end the lockdowns and end the restrictions and go back to work and go back to their lives. But no, it's just the opposite. They must stay locked down until the virus is completely eliminated, which, by the way, is never going to happen. You know, even if we all get booster shots, even if there's plenty of social distancing, everything else, it's going to be part of our lives like the flu is. There's going to be people getting coronavirus. Hopefully they're not old or obese. By the way, there was a couple of people over the weekend who were suffering with coronavirus who were obese, and we're not allowed to point that out. You just look at a picture of somebody and they're struggling, they're suffering from COVID, and they're like 400 pounds. And you say, maybe we should, along with social distancing and masking up and everything else, canceling stuff, maybe we should encourage people to, I don't know, lose a few pounds. If it could save their lives, why not? We try to convince people to quit smoking, don't we? Why don't we try to convince people to mix in a salad, lose a few pounds, and live? Why is that kind of off limits?
Yeah, and of course, I would never advocate for any of this, but it's the same argument of forcing someone to take a shot as it is forcing someone on a treadmill. It's the same argument. So,
and I think we'll remember that forever. That the reaction, the response from the government to this virus that kills the obese is to shut down the gyms and leave McDonald's and Wendy's open, and never ever. I mean, can you imagine one of these tyrants? These Charlie Baker, Andrew Cuomo types, Whitmer, de Blasio, ever going on camera and saying, listen, you fatties, you're going to die if you don't get out there and take a walk. If you don't stop overeating, you could die. They will never say that. It's remarkable how that's just, how about Fauci? You think that fraud would ever go on and say, listen, it really is affecting the obese. You must try to trim down.
Yeah, they can't fat shame, but they can say, "Oh, all you young and healthy people, we're not going to play games anymore. We're going to force you into cars and shoot you up with the vaccine."
Yeah, and if you don't get the vaccine, we're not going to give you health care. I love those people who say we should not allow someone who's not vaccinated to take up a bed in the ICU. Well, how about the guy that's taking up 3 beds because he's 450 pounds? Can we shame him to getting in shape and maybe living longer, not dying from this virus because he's so overweight? Nope, can't do that. That's off limits, but maybe someday we'll say, you know what, maybe we should have left the gyms open. Maybe, we should have closed the Sonic and left the gyms open, but no, we're not going to do that. But this could get interesting. Every day in the NFL and in all professional sports, there's people testing positive, even if they're vaccinated. And we know they have different measures, COVID measures for guys who are vaccinated. Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Tennessee Titans, was the latest. He tested positive, even though he's vaccinated. I think it's, I don't know what it is, 2-day quarantine or something when you're vaccinated. Last week, the Titans played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Mike Vrabel spent a lot of time with Tom Brady, their old teammates and friends. We still don't have an answer. Do you realize this, Carano? We still don't have an definitive answer on whether Tom Brady is vaccinated.
No one's asked. I mean, I have to believe that the Boston media, as milquetoast as they are, would ask Tom Brady if he was vaccinated. But they won't even ask him in
They
Florida.
won't even ask. It's embarrassing. He avoided the subject one day when someone talked about, the vaccination procedures in general and what percentage the team is at. I believe there are some teams have reached 100%, not the Bucks. We don't know who the holdouts are because there are rules where you have to wear a mask on the sideline when you're not vaccinated, but there's generally people believe if Brady wanted to, he would violate those rules. He'd just do it his way because he doesn't want. I still don't think he's vaccinated. I still think he believes he's not really susceptible to this disease because he lives such a healthy life and in diet and exercise and pliability and everything. And I think he is, probably never get it because, it's the kind of life he leads. But wouldn't that be something if Tom Brady, because he was hanging around Mike Vrabel just before opening weekend or, a couple of weeks before opening weekend, Brady has to quarantine because he's got it. And if he's not vaccinated, I believe it's 6 days or 7 days that you have to sit out. That would be a pretty big story. But
it'd be a huge story, yeah. But we won't find out unless something happens. I mean, but if he gets it, he's right. Like he'll be fine. He's healthy. He's super fit. He's healthy. He's young. Like he's fine. And
his son, by the way, who I don't even know how old Jack is was with him too when he was around Vrabel a lot last week. But you're right. If he gets it, so in his mind, that's what he's thinking. If I get it, so what? I'll be fine after a couple of days. I'll get the immunity, the antibodies. I won't have to get it again. He's not fat. He's not old. He's not. I don't think he has any underlying conditions or comorbidities, so he'll be fine. But it will still be a huge story because, as you know, and we don't have people who are killing dogs in this country, but we sure do have these crazy vaccine people that if you don't get the shot for whatever reason, I mean, if you're young and healthy, I'm not sure why you would get the shot. Brady's not young anymore, but if you're 21 and healthy, you can't, go to a concert. You can't work. I mean, many companies, certainly many, states and local governments will not hire you. They'll fire you if you don't get the experimental vaccine. It's reached peak lunacy in terms of vaccine. But I guess if you look at Australia, it could get worse.
Well, you said earlier it hasn't gotten to that point here yet, but you thought that there was maybe something that would make that happen, some sort of event or something. Do you want to expound on that a little bit?
I don't know what the event would be. I guess someone like someone like Brady, someone famous, just super super famous, some I don't know, big movie star, big athlete, but they would have to get sick. And if Brady gets it, he's not going to get really sick. The media keeps focusing on people who are unvaccinated. This talk show host in Tennessee died the other day, Phil Valentine, and he was not anti-vaccine, but he was a skeptic, a mask skeptic, a vaccine skeptic, and he died at age 61. And the media, obviously, they were thrilled. There was people.
They love that stuff. Yeah.
I think it was Martina Navratilova tweeting about how he deserved it or something. I mean, that's what you get. And apparently, if you're 800 pounds and you die, that's tragic. Even though, as long as you're vaccinated, if you're young and fit and you die because you didn't get vaccinated, they can mock you. But if you're 800 pounds and you die, as long as you're vaccinated, you're cool. No problem. Just get the vaccine. There's nothing else we can do here. We can't fat shame you, as you point out. But we'll see if Brady, we'll see who's going to get affected. It's going to happen. It's going to be part of our life. If you can get the virus, even though you've been vaccinated, 2 or 3 times, even though you get a booster, even though you wear a mask, then that means it's not going away. That means it's part of our lives. That means it's part of the sports world, the NFL, NBA, whatever. There's going to be guys getting the virus, sitting out a day or two, coming back and dealing with that. It's not going away. You have people like you who get the sniffles, and now you're waiting. Now you're waiting on your.
You're gonna out me with this HIPAA stuff. Yeah. So we're recording a part today. I just felt like a little bit of congestion. Didn't want to take a shot with.
Well, I appreciate you,
Gerry.
I appreciate you looking out for me, seeing
how. But I feel fine.
But that's the way it works with someone like you. You're not fat. You're not old. You don't have, as far as I know, a lot of comorbidities, do you?
No. I'm generally very healthy.
So you're gonna get it, and you're probably not even gonna know it. I mean, you could have it.
Yeah, I could, but Yeah, I think right. I bet on my immune system and my lifestyle that I'm going to be fine. And if you look at all the statistics, it says I'm going to be fine.
Okay, so we're not going to kill the dogs in your neighborhood, just in case. We don't want you leaving your house.
No. And just to say, we're not saying I have COVID. I have a little bit. I'm a little congested. You can hear my voice. But I just didn't want to take any chances.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But by the way, they shoot the dogs in Australia, right? They took everyone's guns away. Nobody has guns in Australia. They confiscated all the weapons, which is what makes it even scarier when you see people getting rounded up and put in internment camps because they, didn't get the vaccine.
That's the difference. Because there's a potential cost to that if you try to do that here, where there's no cost to that there.
Well, I'm not sure people are going to take up arms and fight the government.
Oh, I mean, it's simple math. I mean, look at what happened in Northern Ireland. If the government puts their thumb down enough, the U.S. doesn't have enough people to go door to door and confiscate the guns. It's just eventually it's not worth the struggle.
All right. Well, we will leave it there. We'll keep an eye on that and see if Brady comes out of this okay. He will. I told you last year after he won the Super Bowl, I'm never ever questioning anything Brady does again. He's going to win the Super Bowl this year. Next year, the year after, he's going to be 63 years old and win the Super Bowl. I'm never, ever, ever picking against him to do anything. He's special. Okay. He's special. He's going to win. Everybody has problems in their life. Everyone is going through a quiet struggle. You ever hear that expression? Yes. Be kind to people because you don't know what kind of struggle they're going through. We all have our struggles. Except Tom Brady. He doesn't have any struggles. No problems, no struggles. Everything in his life is perfect. That's why he's different than you or me. But we will leave it there. We'll let you go, take your, what are you taking, Dayquil? You got any Sudafed?
Oh, I don't take that crap. I have vitamin C, vitamin D like a real man.
Yeah, good. When do you get your test back?
Next couple days. Yeah.
I thought it was quicker than that. Isn't it like one day?
Yeah, there it just depends on how these people are. It just depends on how backed up they are. There is there's like an immediate test where you get back in a couple hours, but they didn't have that wasn't available in my area. So I just took a regular one. I had to stick the little Q-tip up my own nose and swab it around. Super
really.
Yeah, you just go through the drive-through now. It's super simple and
put up your own nose.
Yeah, and it's like you got to swab it like a halfway and super ticklish and go like around a couple revolutions. You just sit there for like 15 seconds. I wanted to sneeze. It's so irritating to do to yourself.
I'm not sure I could do that. It's not easy to do. But
I recommend.
Anyway, we'll good luck, Karana. We will be waiting, anxiously awaiting the results, and we'll be apart until you.
Yeah. I think that's it. Just in case.
Get a negative result. I appreciate it, but we will leave it there. Thanks to everybody for listening and watching and commenting. Any good comments that I miss? I can't do this. I can't do the show and read the comments. Just don't have the ability.
No, that's fine. I mean, we were, some of the dog stuff got people up in arms.
Yeah.
People talking about fat shaming good, vax shaming, fat shaming bad, vax shaming good, all sorts of stuff in the comments. I talk to them. I talk to the people.
Good. Appreciate it. That's your job. But let's leave it there. We'll do this again tomorrow because this stuff is just going to get crazier. I can't even imagine the worst case scenario in Kabul or in Afghanistan. I can't imagine if there are like mass casualties or mass hostages, and we're leaving it up to the dementia patient in the White House to lead us through this crisis. I try not to think about it. Try not to think about the worst case scenario. We'll think about the best case scenario, that our brave servicemen and women get these people out, get them home, get them here, get them out of harm's way. But if this goes sideways, man, are we going to be tested as a nation? But we will see how it goes and hope for the best. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Show, and we will do it again tomorrow.